First of all, I want to give thanks to God that He granted us to come here and to worship Him on this blessed Thanksgiving Sunday. This year is quite a unique year, right? So I don't know what kind of feeling you have on this time, especially today, the blessed Thanksgiving Sunday. I don't know about Western church's culture, but in my country, especially when I was young, on the Thanksgiving Sunday, all church members brought vegetables and fruits. Some may buy from the stores, some may brought from their home that they had grown. And after service, they shared the fruit and vegetables with the neighbors, or they donated them to some organizations such as the orphanage, or nursing home, or fire department, or police station, someone, and that way. All of those activities was only for one reason, right? For one reason, to celebrate the Thanksgiving Day and to share the God's grace with others. And generally say, as we all know, that the origin of Thanksgiving Day is from when the colonists and the First Nation, Wampanoag Indians in the States, they willingly shared their autumn harvest with the Puritans who came to the States from England. It was the first year and their harvest was really poor and not that much successful, so the First Nation shared it. And the Puritans gave offering with that harvest to God and gave thanks to God. It was the origin. Not only in the States, but also in most of the countries, people celebrate their harvest. However, it is hard for us to deeply feel the meaning of the Thanksgiving compared to the past, because we do not live in an agrarian society anymore. So we do not farm, some may, but we don't, right? Especially this year, right? Our normal life was almost ruined, and everything was stopped. And so it may be easy for people to complain rather than remember God's grace and give thanks to Him. It's a tough time. As we know, in the book of Exodus chapter 23, it contains the three list of the feasts that the people of Israel had kept. The feast of unleavened bread, the feast of harvest, and the feast of ingathering. The feast of unleavened bread is the time to give thanks to God for His salvation. God set the people of Israel free from the hand of Egyptian. And the feast of harvest and the feast of ingathering are the feast of Thanksgiving, and confessing their faith and hope that God will guide them, God will protect them, God will feed them. So they saw the result of God's grace, and they also entrusted their lives to God for God's guidance. Of course, these three feasts are based on agriculture. So we can say the Thanksgiving Day contains the meaning of at least the Feast of Harvest or the Feast of Ingathering as well. Today, we will meet a man. His name is Nabal. Let's see how verses 2 and 3, how the Bible introduces him. Let's see verse 2 and 3. He lived in Mount, right? And he had stock farming. He was a really rich man. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And Next, and he has a wife, beautiful, discerning wife. Her name was Abigail. But this man Nabal was harsh and badly behaved, and he was Calebite. The thing we shouldn't miss is from his the description about him is he was a Calebite. Why the Bible obstinately mentioned this fact? He was a Calebite in the description of Nabal. Why? According to the book of Numbers, chapter 13, Caleb was a tribe of Judah. It means Nabal was not a Gentile, but a person of one of the people of Israel, God's chosen people. Especially one of the people of the tribe of Judah. What about David? He came from Bethlehem. And Bethlehem belongs to Judah's territory. David was one of the tribe of Judah. Because they were the same tribe. It means the relationship between Nabal and David was not that much far nor strange. Rather, they could have a sense of intimacy or kinship. Come on, we are the same tribe. We are family. One day David heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. The meaning of shearing sheep for the stock farmer is similar to harvest for the farmers. It was the day to collect the result of his whole year effort. And it's the day of celebration day. It's party time. As written on verse 36, usually people invited friends and others, neighbors, and celebrated that day. David sent 10 young men to greet Nabal in his name, and to ask Nabal for some food donation. Look at verse 8. David called himself as your son David. So David humbled himself quite a lot, and he respected Nabal. And he also expressed through the verses in his expression, we can notice that he expressed a familiarity between David and Nabal, right? But David's request was not that much simple, not that much easy. According to verse 13, David and his companion, his party was about 600 people. Not 60, 600 people. So it was not a matter of buying a few whole pizzas. No. David's request was for the sponsorship was way more than we think, right? Then, why? Why David asked for support so boldly, confidently, and faithfully so? Why? How come? There is a testimony of one of Nabal's servants in verse 15 and below. He said, David and his party had treated Nabal's servants very well. None of Nabal's servants were attacked or hurt. Nothing was missing. In today's view, it's normal. They should do. They shouldn't attack others, right? But in his report, this servant pointed out this fact first. David did not plunder us. he was not our enemy. It must have been really, really impressive to him. It implies David could have done to Nabal's servant, but he didn't. Actually, we can easily imagine 600 people. Yeah? 600 people can do many things, lawful or unlawful. Sometimes numbers become like beast, make people a beast. But David was generous, fair, right, and kind. Also, by staying with Nabal's servant, David and his party became their guardians. So the servant said, they were a word to us both by night and by day. You may heard the news that one of the police station in the States, they offered their parking lot for the marketplace. When people want to trade their possessions, personal trade, meet at the police station parking lot, so that nobody can deceive, right? Like that way, by merely staying with them, the other guys, bad, evil guys, couldn't attack Nabal's servant. According to this servant and Abigail's response, David's request was not that much unreasonable. It was fair and acceptable at that time. However, as we know that Nabal refused David's request. He did not have any appreciation for David's favor or his generosity. He intentionally ignored David by saying, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? I don't know who he is." Not merely refused, he insulted David as the servant who was breaking away from his master. Escaping bad, evil servant David, right? Based on this expression, it seems he already heard about David. And though he did not have any personal relationship with David, but he knew David's situation. But Nabal defied David. David's unfair refugee. It's an unreasonable persecution, right? However, he defined it as a servant who was breaking away his master. He belittled David, who protected Nabal's possessions, as not worthy to share the food he prepared for the servant. Verse 11, he says, "Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shares, and give it to men who came from I do not know where?" After receiving this report from 10 young messengers, David was greatly upset. He told his people to arm themselves. Put on your swords. And David also strapped his sword. 400 men armed and went up to Carmel to destroy Nabal and his house. We all know the rest of the story. Abigail mediated dramatically. And so David did not slaughter Nabal and his house. But Nabal died because God struck him. You guys remember that Nabal was a Calebite. a tribe of Judah. He was one of the people of Israel who knew the law of the Lord. He had to know God's will, God's law, God's heart, God's grace and love. According to verse 36, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. He held a huge and luxurious feast for his family household. It shows he loved his family a lot. Of course, we can interpret he was full of vanity. So even though he was not a king, but he wanted to hold a great feast like a king, to boast his position, his power. We can interpret it that way. But I want to say, at least he was able to hold that much big feast for his family member, and he spent that much big money for his family member, for his people. However, his servant had quite a different image of Nabal. The servant evaluated his master Nabal as such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. Verse 3 describes Nabal as a harsh and badly behaved man. NIV translates, he was surly and mean in his dealing. When he treated others, he was surly and he was mean. He was rude. His wife Abigail also called him a worthless man on verse 25. Can you understand what kind of a person Nabal was? The one who does not listen to others. The one who is harsh and mean to others. And according to the fact that he insulted David, we can see he easily ignored others and he did not respect others. Or, of course, he didn't have any empathy on others as well. He did not know how to express his appreciation to others. Look, he must have thought to himself, I'm a good man, I'm a good father, I'm a quite good husband. I love my people, I love my family member. I don't care for spending big money as long as I can take care of my family member. But all people around him considered him as a worthless man to speak to. The one who cannot communicate. What a poor man. Let's think about ourselves. If the images that you think of yourself and what our God thinks are different, as Nabal's case, what you would do? What should you do? We have to think about it. The Hebrew word Nabal means foolish or senseless. And you may know a lot that this word has been used in the Bible. For example, Psalm 14:1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable deeds. There is none who does good. Jesus also used this word toward a rich man in Luke chapter 12. Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? The one who does not acknowledge God is never a foolish man. Nabal thought everything he had was due to he had done well. He pretended he did everything. He did not recognize David and his party had protected his servant, nor even admitted. As long as he takes things for granted, can he appreciate to others who had sacrificed and devoted for the things that he had? Can somebody who thinks there is no God give thanks to God by recognizing God's grace in his life? That's what the Psalm 14 verse 1 says. Even though God had poured out abundant blessing on him, he would think he deserved it. Of course, none of us would say, I do not admit God in my life. I recognize him, I believe in God, and I feel his grace and love. All of us will say that. But we have to check ourselves. Do we appreciate God's grace and God's love in our lives? Not in the church. Not in our successful time. What about in our hardship? Don't you take things for granted, because God had given his blessing continuously. Oh, come on, it's normal. That's natural. It's always had done like this way. Haven't you have take the routine, the normal life as natural? And omit God's guidance, God's grace. We have to think about it. If we forget to give thanks to God while we are enjoying his blessing in our lives, what's the difference between Nabal and us? The 3 feasts of the people of Israel were the feast of confession of appreciation regarding God's salvation in the past, and the feast of confession of appreciation by seeing the result of God's grace and love. And it's the feast time to confess appreciation by having hope for God's grace in the future. Though we do not farm nor harvest grain, whenever we meet the feast of Thanksgiving, let's check ourselves by remembering God's grace that he has given to us. I bless you to continue to give thanks to God and share his grace and his love with your neighbors, and keep greater thanksgiving with them in the future. That's why we are here. Let's pray. Lord, we know